When I was younger, I was not very quick to change. Like, I did not like change. And so going from one home to another to a completely strange family, it was hard.
It was tough for me to move somewhere where it was all new.
It wasn't easy. The rules are always different. Expectations are different. There's these minor cues about the culture that everyone just seems to get, and sometimes you get it wrong.
When we talk about kids who have been through trauma, what we have failed to see is that one of the most important pieces is that it's happened during transitions. This is transitional trauma.
The defining experience for a child who enters foster care starts with loss.
Even if they want to be in your family, it's still scary. It's still a huge change.
It was scary.
It doesn't mean that just because the change is a good change, that it's easy. Any type of change is going to be hard for our kids.
This is Core Teen, right time training for resource parents. In this episode, we focus on transitions, those times of change and upheaval when children must move. We'll learn from experts the impact transitions can have on young people in care.
They don't know how to live in your home. That's something they've got to learn.
We'll hear from experienced resource parents who have helped children get through difficult transitions.
Every kid is different and every age is different, and how they come into your home is different every time.
And we'll listen to the voices of youth.
Treat me like I'm actually part of the family, and that's really all I wish for.
As we learn about the impact of transitions, why they happen, how they feel, and what resource parents can do to prepare for them.
It really took a toll on me when I was taken from my biological family. I was very close to them. I didn't know everything that was going on around me, because to me, that was just my family. I loved them. I wanted to be with who I belonged to, like I was theirs.
Every transition they've experienced in their life could have meant the loss of a good friend, the loss of a caring teacher, the loss of a principal they saw twice a day who just made them feel special.
When I first got into foster care, it was kind of like I didn't know what foster care was.
I was very confused. I didn't really like it at all.
You know, you're kind of like shocked, I guess, because you're going to a new, home, plus you're going to a new school, and you don't really get to see your family.
Think about how scary that would be.
Because now your whole life changes. The life that you knew, everydayness is different. That's loss.
They didn't ask to come here. They didn't ask to be moved from their family, and you're asking them to go to a new home with a new set of rules, a new set of smells, new foods that they may not have ever had and may not like.
So I want you as a parent to step back and say, well, wait a minute, what if I were to take you and put you into a home that had completely different food, different traditions, different culture? How would your transition be? Would you be able to just do it overnight?
You really do have to think about transition and what that means to them. Coming into your home, coming out of your home, making and losing relationships. And obviously, for our young people in care, they have had many transitions over which they've had almost no control.
This child is living in a deep fear state, and they don't know that they're safe.
I haven't met the person who likes being out of control. It's hard.
It's very hard.
The hardest part for me moving into a new place was the new people, because I'm not good with people sometimes.
It felt very uncomfortable, and I was very vulnerable.
It's frightening to have to live with strangers. It's awful to have to change your routine to a stranger's home. It's terrible to have people asking you questions you don't want to answer.
I didn't like it. Like, I really hated it, actually.
And sometimes people have expectations.
There's often an expectation that the child coming into our family at whatever age is going to just adapt to our family.
They expect you to be automatically comfortable there. They expect you to automatically be comfortable sitting down at meals with them. Sometimes I just needed time.
Now on top of it, they're dealing with the trauma of being removed from a parent who, even though may have been abusive, is still someone who they love, have an attachment with.
We are taking them from an unsafe, high-risk environment that was bad for them. However, we are taking them from that situation where there was love. We don't talk about that.
And by the way, for many of these kids, that's not the first time it's happened to me. It's not the second time. It's not the third time. It's the fourth or fifth time that this has happened.
In total, I was in 22 foster homes. I was in 1 group home and 2 juvenile detention centers.
And at some point, pretty early on, if there's too many moves, then they just shut down.
After the first couple times I was moved, I started realizing, like, you know, nothing's permanent, so just go with it and don't get attached to people.
There is no one-size-fits-all template for helping children make transitions, and no way to shield children from the separation, loss, and grief that go along with these transitions. But there are ways to help. First, it's important to know that there are many different kinds of transitions in the child welfare system. There is that first, wrenching transition, when a child is removed from their family of origin because of abuse, neglect, or other unsafe conditions. They might go to the home of a relative, to a group home, or to a licensed foster home. Once they're in the system, kids often move from foster home to foster home, from an emergency placement to something longer term, or to be with siblings, or because of a disruption. They might move from a foster home to the home of a relative, or back again. A young person might be stepping down from a higher level of care, such as a residential treatment center, correctional facility, or hospital, into a family home, or the other way around. A youth might be moving from a family home into congregate care. Some young people enter foster care after living in a shelter or experiencing homelessness. No one knows how many young people couch surf, drifting from home to home, often undetected by the child welfare system. Sometimes a young person exits the system to be adopted, which could mean a physical move into a new permanent home, or a change in status within the same family's home. In the best cases, a family is reunified. The young person can safely move back home. Ideally, any transition should be carefully planned over time with ample preparation, support, and communication between caregivers, the child's family, and professionals. But sometimes the transition is an emergency. To ease a child's transition into your home, you will need to know as much as possible about their placement history, the circumstances around this move, the life experiences that have shaped them so far, what their current living arrangement is like, and how they're doing emotionally, socially, and academically. Likewise, when a child moves out of your home into another placement setting, you will play an essential role in preparing the child and their next caregiver for a smooth transition.
Caregivers play a vital role depending on what the nature of the transition is.
Planned or unplanned, transitions are challenging. The adults in the child's life can help by keeping 3 considerations at the forefront.
First, recognize what the impact on the child or youth is likely to be, what the needs of the home that will be receiving that child will be, and what some of the needs of the child will be in their current placement as they support the child moving on to their next placement. Let's take a pretty fundamental transition. A child is removed from the home and placed into foster care. It's vital for that caregiver to understand the attachment and the bond that likely exists with the biological parent.
What matters to children is their family. And when they get pulled out of that family, no matter how challenging it was, no matter how abusive it was, how neglectful it was, It doesn't matter. That's their family.
Recognizing that the parents are not anonymous, they are very much part of the equation, that you are partnered with that parent.
This child is connected to another family by birth. Nothing will ever change that.
You're just recognizing the difficulty inherent of having been separated. Probably the most common placement-related transition is from one foster home to another foster home. And I think, again, caregivers play the vital role of being able to set the context. And again, I would say this is both caregivers in the home that a child is leaving, for whatever that reason might be, and also the caregivers who are receiving a child that's moving from one foster home to another. The extent to which those caregivers can come together with a narrative that explains, we care about you, we want you to be successful, and here's what we're doing as a team to make that possible.
That takes really good communication between myself and the family and the family services workers.
It means, whenever possible, putting as much information that's age appropriate for the child or youth on the table so that they have some sense of agency over what's going to happen to them next.
So helping them to understand what's it going to be like, what's going to happen, what's the process look like, asking them if they have questions, finding out what the fears are.
If they're going to live in another home, then it's usually important to meet the folks first, to visit first, to talk about what they like and don't like in that home first.
When did they get up? Did they have chores? Was there an allowance? What kinds of activities did they like to do?
I send out a family profile to every child who's going to come into my home, and I let them choose whether they're coming to us. They know before they walk through the door. They've seen pictures of their room. They've seen pictures of the house. They've seen pictures of our pets. They know their names. Like, I think it's very unfair that I get every bit of your information. I know when you were sexually abused. I know who beat you. I know your parents were in jail for drugs, and you know nothing about me.
Sometimes as a foster child, I was treated like I was broken without anyone even ever knowing or asking me my story, you know, and that hurts so much, like when someone reads your file and thinks that they just know you.
If we seem like a good fit for them, awesome. If we don't, I'm not offended. Let them choose.
Talk to the youth about what it's like to be in this family. You know, this is what we do. This is where we go from time to time. This is what our routine and our structure looks like.
This is what a day in the life in our home will look like.
And so they can come in with a sense of, you know, it's not so scary.
Another common transition is from a congregate living environment to a family home.
Transitions for youth and teens coming from a residential setting can be a little different than for a youth who's coming out of a foster home setting. Residential settings typically have a lot of rules. They are very structured, and so their transition into a family may be a bit more challenging.
So if you have a child that is moving from congregate care into your family, it is very important to be proactive and to go to that environment, speak to the staff, speak to people who know this child.
These staff know what sets them off. They know what makes them tick. They know what actually works to calm them down versus what might work.
Talk to individuals who may not necessarily be a staff, but have a good idea of who this child is. That may be the maintenance person. That may be a school teacher. That may be a visiting family of another child.
And that sort of jumpstarts you to know what their likes and dislikes are, what regulates them, what dysregulates them, what their triggers are.
What they eat and what they don't eat, and whether they sleep with the lights on or the lights off. All of those things are going to help both you as the parent and them to ease through the transition better.
The way I started is I used the people she had connection with.
You know, being able to maybe visit them with their trusted staff, because sometimes that handoff is crucial.
So the staff she trusted the most in residential, the three of us would do something.
Being able to say, you know, like almost like there's like this little seal of approval that happens, you know, like, okay, well they were okay with them and I trust them, so maybe I'll be okay over here.
One of the things that I think is really important for families to understand is that the whole family needs to be on board. They need to understand that it is going to shift things in the way their family works and looks and functions on a day-to-day basis. I think a lot of those things can be talked through with kids.
Really talk to the children who are already in the home, because they can make or break the success of these kids coming in. And not just talking about why are we doing this, but also it's so important to talk to the kids who are already in your family about what do you want to hold sacred. Lots is going to change, sweetie, right? Every time someone else, whether it's a baby or a 17-year-old joins a family, there's going to be a lot of change. What do you want to make sure doesn't change? What matters to you? Doing all of that before kids come in can make a huge difference in terms of how those new children are welcomed.
What's the relationship with extended family? How do they relate to the children that are currently in your home? What is their understanding of this new individual? How are they going to treat them?
We often perceive that our extended family is going to embrace our decision to foster or to adopt, that this is just one more person, the more the merrier. Many times that is not the case.
That is something that parents need to understand before the youth is brought into the home. It's a little bit late when Uncle Joe brings the other two kids a gift and doesn't bring the youth that they brought in a gift because, quote, he's not my nephew.
So be prepared that maybe sometimes extended family won't understand.
And there may be some family members that you don't visit as often if they can't understand your new family constellation and get with the program.
As we've seen, every young person entering foster care is dealing with loss.
Kids have losses when they come to your house. They lose their school often, they lose their pets, they lose their parents, they lose their friends.
Every time I moved, I lost connections, I lost friends, I lost belongings.
I came there with nothing, literally the clothes on my back, and that was all I had.
The first engagement of that young person should be, I know this is really scary. I know you miss your mom. I know you might miss your dad. You're wondering what's happening to them. Anything related to that.
I don't usually ask kids to tell me how they're feeling right away. You know, I don't say, how's that feeling for you? Because that's an intimacy, right? We haven't built that yet. So I'll just say, I know this is weird. I feel weird too.
Welcome. We know this is maybe a struggle for you today. Would you like a cup of tea? Would you like a glass of milk?
I like to keep the rolled up like instant cookies or biscuits in the fridge or freezer. That's a tip that I learned from another foster parent. So if you get a call and you know kids are on the way, you stick some of those in the oven. So then you both have a snack that's right there. And you have this sort of welcoming, warm, homey feel.
We don't talk about rules the first night that they come in. We try not to even do it the first week that they're there.
By the time a kid gets here, what they've been through that day is just, it's too much. When they come into this space, they need space.
Children moving through the system may have been rejected in the past, and they may enter your home expecting to be rejected again.
I think the most important thing is to make them feel like they're a part of the family.
Not treating us like we're an actual foster child, treating us like we're one of your own.
I do not want to hear them say, oh, this is my foster daughter, Devosha. No, I want to hear you guys say, this is my daughter, Devosha. Because saying foster daughter, that just makes me feel like I'm not part of the family.
Make us comfortable, help us know that we're valued somewhere, that you're not gonna kick us out if we mess up one time.
It's important for the resource parent to make the youth feel welcome and safe and accepted.
A sense of safety and belonging doesn't develop overnight. It develops over time. But caregivers can set the tone right away.
They brought my stuff to the room I was in. They said, we'll be outside the room. You can close the door. You can have the door open. You can take as much time as you need. And they let me be and waited until I came to them instead of trying to come to me.
It was just small things. It was, I know you like energy drinks, so I got you one after work. What do you want to eat tonight?
Letting me make my bedroom my own, letting me put things up on the wall that are important to me, or have a comforter and a pillow that is like, you know, something that I think is cute.
When you take a teenager and you put them into a well-functioning, healthy family, we simply assume that this teenager is going to understand what family is. They don't.
We do get in the habit of just expecting people to adapt, or even not just adapt, to really thrive and say, woo, you're in a better situation now, you should be great.
Now, the reason this is so tough for the kids that we're talking about is that they have experienced all kinds of unpredictable, chaotic environments, lots of loss. So they have no reason to believe things are going to go like they're expecting, and they're bracing for the worst. So parents can help in a few ways. First of all, if kids do need to know, the more you can help them understand, the better.
There has to be that teaching, that learning. What I usually do with kids is to say, you know, I respect where you came from, but now this is what basically your new reality is going to look like.
The other thing is it's really important to be able to hang on to things that you're leaving behind that are meaningful for you.
Whether it's a residential program or a foster care program, the children will become acclimated to the rituals of family life. Being aware of those things and doing as much as you can to provide continuity between the rituals they're familiar with and the rituals that they're about to be familiar with is incredibly important to easing that transition.
Maybe it's the same time you eat, maybe the same time for bed. Some of the things that you can recreate in order to smooth that transition for that child so that some things feel a bit familiar, because pretty much everything is going to be unfamiliar.
When I transitioned my son out of a residential setting, one of the things that I took from his experience in that setting that was familiar to him was a kind of a very basic behavioral checklist. And that experience that he had in his previous setting of saying, what's my chart, what am I doing, what should I be doing, it's 8:15 in the morning, really allowed him to anchor his new experience in his new environment around something that was familiar to him.
And then really integrating what matters to the kids. What are the foods that you like to eat, right? And maybe we've never eaten them, that's okay. Are there recipes that are important to you?
So like when you're gonna go shopping for the week, take them with you and have them help you pick things out. Maybe you can say, you know what, why don't you prepare a meal for our family? Why don't we create something together so that, you know, if spaghetti is their comfort food, let them make spaghetti.
So if a kid said, hey, you know, I love Cocoa Puffs, then we would make sure that we had Cocoa Puffs in the house when they arrived, because it was a feeling of familiarity and warmth, and it was just a gesture to say we see you.
It's a sweet gesture of who you are matters to me.
What do you all do for birthdays?
In the morning, how do you want me to wake you up?
What's their favorite this? What's their favorite that?
As we've seen, major transitions, such as leaving home and entering the child welfare system, are traumatic for children. We also know that minor, everyday transitions, like leaving for school or getting ready for bed, can trigger sensations of anxiety and dread that can often be traced to an earlier transition that was traumatic.
This is transitional trauma. And so that very important moment is going to define how they deal with transitions from that point forward. Because it was a change, and for them now, their blueprint says change equals pain. Simple transitions that we think of as simple in our adult perspectives now have a blueprint around them that something bad is going to happen.
It's like flying. What are the hardest parts? The takeoff and the landing, right? That's what people hate, who hate to fly. That's what transitions are. And it's the unpredictability.
Any transition may feel just as big as the transition from moving one home to another home.
Leaving, coming, going, changing activities, we know those are stressful. So how do we make that better?
And we just have to respect that every single child has his or her own pace of healing.
It takes time, it takes that space, it takes that kind of like
level of trust that they build over time.
The reality is, if they need more time, they're going to need more time. You cannot force healing. It's not something that can be forced.
Kind of let that flower bloom.